Hey guys, this is JP and welcome to /X Games. So today I'll be showing you how to add in-game chat to your networking platform game. And this is going to be the sort of chat that follows the player around in the game room. So it's really cool. You can run around maybe through a village. You can see that someone said hello above their character. You can walk up to their character and you can type hello back and maybe wait for a response. So that's what we're going to be doing. And it's actually pretty straightforward stuff. So as always, I've got my server on the left and my client on the right. And pretty much everything that we're going to be doing here is going to be handled through the controller, because the controller exists throughout our entire game. It's very persistent. It's going to be handling the typing, it's going to be handling the display of what we're typing, and the sending of that string to the server and therefore to all the other players. So in our create, let's create some variables that we'll use. We need a global typing variable, which will initialize to false. We will need a max width. That's how many pixels worth of characters we're allowed in our string. I'm going to set that to 300. You can fiddle around with that as you please. Next, blink. False. That's just the blinking on and off as we see here in this text editor. We're just going to be replicating that. And, of course, text equals blank string. Then let's set off an alarm. I don't think we have any alarms in here, so we can call it alarm 0. And let's set it to room speed times 1, so it'll be 1 second. So every second we're going to have this blink. So let's jump into that alarm, add event, alarm 0, some code. This is just going to say blink equals not blink, and a semicolon on that. And it's just going to be firing off this alarm again. In the next second. Very good. Okay, so that'll handle the blinking. Next, I'm going to add a key press any key event, dragging some code over here. And then this here we're going to say if global.typing. And here we're going to say if string width of the current keyboard string is less than max width, then we can update text to be the keyboard string. Otherwise, keyboard string equals our text. Okay, there we go. Now before I display this text on the screen, I actually need to go back and create a new font. So we've got font main, which is pretty large. We've got font small, which is very small. So we need something in between. So actually I'm going to duplicate font small. Let's call this one FNT chat. And I'm thinking 24. So it's just slightly bigger than font small. Okay, very good. So let's hop back into the controller, into draw GUI. Okay, so let's see. Currently we are drawing the latency in white using font main. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's add some code below that, but only if we're in the game world. So obviously we don't want this piece of code to be changing things if we're not in the game world. So let's firstly set our alignment. We're going to be showing this text on the right hand side of the screen. So draw set H alignment is going to be FA right. Our V alignment is going to be middle, so I don't need to do that again. I do need to update our font. Draw set font is going to be FNT chat. Next, if we're typing, then we can draw the text. Let's put it 920 and 320. Let's start it with U, colon, plus text. We don't have to convert that into a string. It's already a string. Now currently that's not taking into account our little blink, so we won't have that. So let's add a condition over here. If not blink, then we do it as we've typed out. else. Let's do all of that, but let's also add the pipe character to the end to simulate that blink on and off. See? On, off, and so on. Okay, so at this point in time, we are capturing an input. We are displaying that input to the middle right-hand side of the screen. But now, what happens when we want to send it? Okay, well, that's where the add event, key press, enter comes into play. Now, before we go and just say, okay, well, send everything to the server, do take note that the enter does two things. Either it starts our typing, or it sends the message. So firstly, well, if we're in the game world, that's the first condition. We don't want to be fiddling around with this if we're not in the game world. Also, if we're typing, ignore it if we're not typing. Also, let's say, well, if the text is not equal to blank, let's not send blank text. It's a waste of bandwidth. And this is where we're gonna send our message. If it is blank, we can ignore it. If the user is not typing, well, then let's put an else here. So this is going to be the part that enables typing. So we just expand this. Initialize the keyboard string to that of text. Global.typing equals true. And you know what? Actually, let's set that alarm off over here. And remove it from here. Perhaps we can add a condition saying if we are typing, then do alarm 0 equals room speed times 1. There we go. Okay, that's better. So do the opposite of the blink, and only if we're typing, then call this alarm again. Cool, that's way better. In our create, let's remove that line so that blinking is all self-contained where it needs to be. Fantastic. Okay, so back into our enter event. So that will enable typing. So what happens if we were typing, we have a text, so it's not blank. What do we do now? Well, firstly, let's do a buffer seek of the global buffer. Buffer seek start. Oh, no capitals allowed. And 0. Okay, that's starting things off. Buffer write global buffer. We're going to write a U8 as always. That's our tag. And if we go to our server, let's see what is available. Let's see, what did we use last? 7. So we can use an 8. Let's use an 8. There we go. Then actually to make we'll fix that up, then copy this line, paste it below. I've got to write a U32, which happens to be my global player ID, so that we know who's sending the message. Then next I'm writing a buffer string, and that's going to be text, which happens to be this variable that we're testing before. Okay, so there we go. We've got our tag of 8, we've got our player ID, we've got our text. Now we need to tell that package message to send. Network send packet. Our socket is socket because we're in object controller, so we have that socket. That's all good. Our global buffer is the one that needs to be sent, and the size is buffer tell global.buffer, so it knows exactly how big that is. Also, after we've pushed enter and it's sent, global typing is false. So now here's the fun bit. On our side of the world, we've just created the text. So how about we take that text that we were typing on the right hand side, and we're going to create an object called a chat object, and it's going to be following our player, and that's going to be putting it right above our player, and it'll look really cool from our end. It's going to be simulating what the other players will actually see. So I'm going to say var chat equals, if I find equals, instance create, give me xy. Don't worry, I will update its coordinates in a bit. It's going to be an object called object chat, which we'll create also in a bit. Chat.text equals text. Now here's the cool bit. Chat.owner equals object local player dot ID. There's only one local player, so we can just grab it like that. So this is telling this object that we've just created that its owner variable is going to be the ID of this. So if we want to update its coordinates, perhaps the player moves, now we want it to follow that player, we can just say owner.x, owner.y, those kind of things. And then obviously lastly, text equals blank. Fantastic. So in actual fact, we've done everything it needs to send that text to the server. So let's say okay to that, and let's create object chat, obj chat. Very simple, no sprite. It's going to have a create event where we're just going to initialize some variables. Text equals blank. We're going to create an alarm. That's going to destroy this chat instance. Let's think, 3 seconds? Okay, so if I type in hello and I push enter, it's going to create this chat instance, which is going to have the hello string attached to it. 3 seconds later, it's going to disappear because it's destroyed. Now you could add fancy effects, you could change its alpha and do all kinds of stuff like that, but I'm not going to add that in this tutorial. I assume you'll be able to do that yourselves. If you don't really know how to do that, just add a comment in the description, I can help you out. I just don't want things to go on for too long. So alarm 0, room speed times 3. Very simple. Let's create that alarm right now, add event, alarm 0, and all it's going to do is, bam, destroy itself. So easy. I've used drag and drop, which I seldomly do, but there we go. Then I'm going to add a step event, which is going to be moving this chat object around to follow its owner. I'm going to say x equals owner dot x and y equals owner dot y, but let's put this just above the owner, minus 45. So now what happens if the person that created this text leaves the game? He goes back to the main menu. He's disappearing. So the instance of the remote player, or if it's me, the local player, no longer exists, which means this is going to explode, because now we're trying to grab an ID of an instance that doesn't exist. So how's about we make sure that if the instance exists, the instance doesn't exist, sorry, of owner, then we also do an instance destroy. Go. And let's actually place that before it tries to access these variables. Just a quick test. And yeah. Very, very good. Lastly, it's going to need a draw event, not a draw GI. Remember, we want this to move around. And just for the sake of making sure everything is set up correctly, I'm going to draw set the font. Oops. FNT chat. Draw set color is going to be C white. Draw set alignment is going to be FA right. Okay, so that's horizontal alignment, and that needs to go like that. Then our vertical alignment, as always, is FA middle. And then all we gotta say is draw text x, y, text. Easy. Very, very easy. Okay, cool. Now, that is created. It's going to handle itself. It's going to appear, show myself what I've just said, and then 3 seconds later it's going to destroy itself. So let's go back to a controller, back to our enter press event. And let's study this bit. So we're sending a tag of 8, we are sending my ID, which is U32, and we are sending the text. So that means when we go to our server, that's how we're going to intercept things. So let's go all the way to the server. Let's keep this one open on the side. Serverland is going to end up in handle incoming packets. Let's scroll down, expand this a little. go to our 7. Let's create case 8. There's our skeleton. So we're going to intercept the ID, which is going to be the PID. Then we're going to be intercepting the text, buffer read from the buffer, and that's the buffer string, just as we sent it. Remember that 8 is this, that ID is this, and this text is this. Then, just as we've done before, we are just going to be broadcasting this to everyone except the player that sent it. So let's look for a piece of code that tells other players about this change. Here we go. Tell other players about this change. Let's take this all, copy that, and paste it in. Just like that. So it's going to be telling everyone else except me, because obviously I know what I've done. So let's get rid of everything we don't need. Again, we're sending in 8. We're sending our PID, and this is going to be string, which is going to be our text. And just like that, the messenger has done his job. That message, 8, player ID, and text is going to be sent all the way back to all the clients. So that is all we need to do in serverland. Let's accept that. Let's accept our controller enter key in client land. Okay, so that message 8 is going to be handled by a script handle incoming packets on the client side. Let's go all the way down. So that was the 7. Let's do an 8 over here. Actually, go back to the server. Let's grab these two. They're exactly the same. Paste them in here. Create some space, and we're gonna say with object remote player. So it's gonna be cycling through all the remote player instances. I want to find the guy represented on my side who sent this message. If remote player capital PID equals this PID right there, well then we can create the chat object to follow this remote player. Var chat equals instance create xy object chat, exactly the same way we did in our local player. Chat dot text equals text, and chat dot owner equals ID. Now this ID is going to be this remote player. Remember that. This text is going to be this text. And we close that off, empty this white space, and we're done. So just like that, we have pushed enter, created a message on the right middle side of our screen, pushed enter again to send that message. It's going to be creating a instance of object chat on our side, which is going to pretty much just set the text and set me, the client, as the owner. That message is then going to fly to the server, which is then going to handle things and send it to all the clients. As another client, I'm going to be intercepting that packet with that ID and that string, finding which person within my game world is represented by the guy who sent the message, and it's going to be creating a chat instance above him with the text, and it's going to be following him around. So we are using that chat instance to pretty much control all aspects of the chat that follows people. And just like that, we have our network chat. So that about wraps up that. So let's fire things up and see what happens. But actually, one more thing that we've got to do before we test this out is make sure that we can't move around while we're typing. Now, if we look in our local player, in his step event, this is where all the movement happens. We detect key, we do all the checks, and so on. We set a sprite. Now, if we can prevent this detect key from happening, it'll mean that these will do nothing. So let's go into that script. Script detect key over here. And let's say if not global dot typing. Okay. So if we're not typing, then the script is going to find out which key we've been pressing and so on. If we are typing, it's going to ignore this, and these variables will be false. Therefore, no actions happen. Okay, let's save everything again, and now let's finally test this out. So here we are within our game world, and if I type something, let's see, hello, there we go, hello. And it's been tracked on the other side. Hi. How cool is that? Just like that, we can communicate with everyone that's in our game world. Do you want to go on an adventure? Uh-oh. Let's see. Error. Not set. Oh, that's just supposed to be keyboard string equals text. Okay, anyway. Small problem. So that about wraps up this tutorial. I hope you found it educational and helpful. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe.